Well, I finally made it to India, and I'm so excited. I've been wanting to come here forever, and I am really anxious to get started. I'm starting in the southern Indian state of Kerala, aptly named God's own country, where I will be visiting the famous backwaters. But first, I'm going to explore the historic area of Fort Kochi. After Kerala, I'm not sure what part of India I'll be visiting next. So subscribe and follow along on my Indian adventure. Fort Kochi is now a major tourist destination, and it's easy to see why. With its laid-back atmosphere and history, it makes for a great visit. I flew to Kochi from Malaysia, and I was very surprised to find that the Cochin International Airport was the first fully solar-powered airport in the world. I thought that was pretty cool. The city of Kochi has a little more than 2 million people, which by Indian standards is a small city. Fort Kochi itself is not what I was expecting at all. It is completely unique in all of India. With its Portuguese, Dutch, and British architectural influences, I feel like I'm in a historical European city. Instead of Hindu temples, there are Catholic churches. Fort Kochi has probably the best preserved history of colonial times in India, and the ideal way to see it come alive is to take a stroll down its old streets and their tree-lined avenues and out along the seashore. That's where we're going to start, at the seashore. History can be strange. In 1341, a flood caused by a tsunami opened up the estuary here, turning it into one of the finest natural harbors in the East. This paved the way for an onslaught of seafaring visitors, from the Arabs to the Chinese, and later the Portuguese, Dutch, and British. And here is a perfect example, the Chinese fishing nets. These magnificent looking Chinese fishing nets were brought here by the Chinese explorer Zheng He around the year 1350 and were used until modern times. Today, they are a tourist attraction. There's only about 8 of them left because they cost so much to maintain, but they are very unique and beautiful to look at. The Chinese fishing nets are really awesome. I didn't know I would get a chance to actually come out on a Chinese fishing net, and they let me pull the rope to make the cantilever system go up and down, and Joseph Alexander explained how the whole system worked. It's really fascinating. You know, this is really a great system for fishing. Very efficient. You can put down a big net and pull in a pretty big haul if you wanted to. I mean, they got quite a few fish just with just a little tiny area, having it down for just 3 or 4 minutes. Today, these Chinese fishing nets are not used for commercial fishing any longer, but the local operators of these nets use them as a tourist attraction. They do catch enough fish to feed their families with, but they kind of work on a donation system. You can watch them operate the nets and they'll let you join in for a small donation. Well worth it. It's starting to warm up a little bit out here this morning, so I had to stop and get myself a fresh coconut. Refreshing. So right behind where I got my fresh coconut, I saw these men sitting out here, these fishermen, repairing their fishing nets. I thought this was a pretty cool thing to watch. So the area of Fort Kochi is very much an art neighborhood. There's art cafes, art galleries, there's murals all over town. It's very interesting here, and it's a very active art scene. Whether Portuguese, Dutch, or British, the well-preserved architecture is one of the most attractive features found here in historic Fort Kochi. Many of these buildings have been converted into heritage hotels. Long verandas and wooden structures differentiate these converted buildings from modern ones. It's worth taking the time to just stroll around and take in all the beautiful and historic architecture. Here's a perfect example about what I was saying about this being an active art community. This mural behind me is like nothing I've seen anywhere else before, and these are all over town. Isn't he cute? It's very lively on the waterfront in the evening. There's all these vendors. You can get your name written on a ring. There's a guy that'll guess your weight for 2 rupees. There's all kinds of food, toys, jewelry, you name it. It's pretty lively down here. The Portuguese explorer Vasco da Gama discovered the sea route from Europe to India and landed not far from here in 1498. With permission from the Raja of Cochin, built Fort Emmanuel here. Within the fort, they built a wooden church, later converting it to stone and masonry. Behind me here is the St. Francis Church, which was built in 1503 and was the first European church built in India. St. Francis has great historical significance as a witness to the European colonial ambitions in India. Vasco da Gama died here in Kochi in 1524, and his remains were buried in this church. They laid here for 14 years and then were taken back to Portugal. A short stroll away, you will find the Santa Cruz Cathedral Basilica. This large church was built in the 1500s by the Portuguese and later elevated to cathedral status. Built in beautiful Gothic style, the intricate designs in this building makes it one of the most impressive in Fort Kochi. It hasn't stood here all that time. It was destroyed in 1795 and later rebuilt. Original or not, this place is just beautiful. So I'm on my way to see a very unique tourist attraction here in Fort Kochi. But ever since I've got here, the rickshaw drivers have been after me to give me a ride somewhere. So now I'm finally going to get to take a ride in a rickshaw, and I'm going to step out here and see if I can't hail one. I am at one of the most fascinating places. It's a public laundry that has been in operation for over 300 years, the Dhobi Khana. The Dhobi Wallas, or washermen and women here, were brought in by the Dutch army around 1700 to wash their uniforms. They come from a particular caste of people whose traditional occupation was washing clothes. Anyone can bring their laundry here and have it done for a fee, and all of the hotels here bring their household linens and towels, bed sheets and things, because they believe that their whites come out whiter when done here than done by a machine. Mostly men do the washing, and the women help hang it to dry and do the ironing. But today there were a lot of men ironing as well. The ironing is no small job either. These irons weigh up to 8 kilograms. That's over 17.5 pounds. Wow, this iron is really heavy. Okay. Here, as in many other places, the people doing the washing at the Dhobi Khana are of an older generation, and theirs is a dying skill. Young people do not want to do such heavy work. They are instead opting to go to college and get a degree in hopes of a profession or an office position. This was not an option for this caste of people from the older generation. One of the must-do things here in Fort Kochi is to attend a performance at the Kathakali Cultural Center. Kathakali theater is a fascinating form of classical Indian dance that dates back to the 1600s. It is a story performance genre of art distinguished by the elaborately colorful makeup and costumes of the traditional all-male dancers. I arrived at the theater early so I could watch the performers' process of painstakingly applying their makeup. Seeing them transform into their characters was fascinating, but even more captivating was watching the performance unfold. There is a lot going on the stage, including chanting, drumming, and singing. The performance itself involves incredibly minute and exacting hand, foot, and eye movements. It even involves some martial arts. Kathakali dancers must complete 6 years of training before they can be on the stage. Native to the Malayalam-speaking region of southwestern Kerala, this art form is intriguing and captivating. I know that India is going to get a lot more hectic and difficult as I travel around, but Fort Kochi has been one heck of an introduction. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment, like, and subscribe because there is so much more to come.